It's the first year of the second term in office and is now 5 years in the saddle as Nigeria's president, Muhammadu Buhari. Tonight, we analyze the promises and the performance. As the People's Democratic Party, the opposition party, says the Buhari's government has failed woefully, the president says he is still focused on delivering on the mandate for change. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Lagos. Today is 5 years since President Muhammadu Buhari took office as Nigeria's president, defeating an incumbent candidate of the PDP, Goodluck Jonathan, the first time of such since 1999 when Nigeria returned to democratic rule, and 4 years later, the president got a re-election mandate from Nigerians and was sworn in for a second term in office last year, May the 29th. Altogether, the president has spent 5 years in the saddle, and the government has reeled out its achievements in the last 5 years, some of which we'll be analyzing tonight on the program. Don't forget that the promises of the president when he took office 5 years ago was to deliver on 3 major cardinal objectives: fixing the economy, ensuring security of Nigerians, especially fighting insurgents in Boko Haram in the northeastern region of the country, and fighting corruption. The People's Democratic Party, the main opposition party in Nigeria, is saying in the last years it's been woeful for the APC government. The main opposition party says the APC has set Nigeria 60 years backwards. Take a listen to the party's spokesperson on this.
The People's Democratic Party reviews the 5 years administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, led All Progressives Congress, federal government, and surmised that they have taken our country 60 years backward. In line with the assessment of majority of Nigerians, our party views the last 5 years of Buhari administration as wasteful. This administration has failed woefully in its 3 major governance planks.
So you heard the People's Democratic Party there. But the president says he is committed to delivering on his mandate. Here is a portion of the statement coming from the media office of the president. The president says, thanks to reforms in governance, our war on corruption and hard work and trust of the Nigerian people, we are better positioned as a nation than ever before to seize the new opportunities that await us to trade, build, make and export with the world. I thank you, the people of Nigeria, for your wisdom and your determination for change. We go forward together. And of course, that's from the president. Tonight, we will attempt at looking at some of these issues and analyze where we are at the moment and the way forward. In a reel of almost 80 pages that the presidency published of the achievements of the programs of the President Buhari-led government, we'll try to analyze tonight. I'm being joined on the program by Mr. Daniel Buwala. He's a lawyer and a member of the APC. He's in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Buwala, for joining us tonight. And from Abeokuta via Skype is Mr. Segun Showumi, a spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Organization. He will be joining us tonight on the program. Let's begin with Mr. Buwala. Mr. Buwala, if you look at what the PDP, the People's Democratic Party, has said, and perhaps we should begin with the issue of the economy and look at the highlight of what the presidency had said they've performed or they've achieved. If you look at some of the things that they said on the issues of the Anchors Boroughs program, presidential fertilizer initiative, the ease of doing business, some of the issues, even in the issue of social investment, they said this government enterprise and empowerment program was launched, homegrown school feeding was introduced, conditional cash transfer was introduced. These are some of the programs that have been rolled out. But the PDP today said that this government is woeful and has led Nigeria 60 years backwards.
Well, thank you for having me and good evening to Nigerians. I am not surprised that PDP is objecting to obvious development and giant stride by this government. Do we have challenges as a country? Yes, we do, just like every other nation of the world. Are we fighting to meet with the changing times? Of course we are. But let's take it from their own perspective, beginning with the economy that they started with. The Anchor Borrowers program that you are hearing about, the beneficiaries are about 1.5 million. Some of the beneficiaries, in fact, majority of the beneficiaries are from your guest that will be soon speaking after me, Shewun Shewumi, Abeokuta. You will see that because Abeokuta, Ogun State, is a rice-growing community. And through the Anchor Borrowers program, you have a large chunk of people in his own locality that are direct beneficiaries of this program. Of course, through even the rail project between the Lagos-Ibadan, a greater portion of it is in Ogun State, where your speaker is going to come from. I don't know of the speaker for a PDP. If I had known his state and his locality, I would have been able to point at 1, 2, or even 3 things that the government is doing right there in their locality. It's okay to spin for political purpose, to deliberately give misinformation or a biased perspective to issue in a bid to confuse people who hear. But take, for example, if you talk to 174 retired Biafran police officers who, even after they were pardoned in 2000 by President Obasanjo, they were not paid their pensions. When the president came on board, he approved the payment of their pensions. If you ask them whether this government is working or not, they will be able to tell you. If you ask over 3,000 people who were sacked in NITEL, when the NITEL went bias, whatever it is, they will be able to tell you that what the previous government have not been able to do, they benefited from it. Over 50% of the Nigerian Airways staff that were disengaged by virtue of the realities of the situation, approvals by the president has been made and they are direct beneficiaries. Now, let's talk about infrastructure. PDP is known for starting something and they never completed. They never complete their project. If you look at the PDP National Secretariat, started from Lord Lugard, up till now it has not been completed. If you look at even some of the programs that this government came on board, took up from them, and then completed, let's put it this way, conversely, if it was PDP that was in our shoe, PDP may not have been able to complete some of the projects they started that we had to complete it. Take, for example, the ones relating to the airport. Whether you look at Abuja and Kano, whether you look at Lagos, you look at Enugu, you look at Port Harcourt, all of these things, when the government took over, the government decided to break this course, the cycle of uncompleted project. And the government decided to take it to the next level. Now, let's come back to the issue of security. I am from the Northeast.
Before, just a moment, Mr. Buhala. Yeah, we'll pick the issue of security, but I like the fact that you've touched on some of the efforts in the area of the economy. Let's get the response from Mr. Segun Shewumi, who is the PDP presidential campaign spokesperson. Thank you so much, Mr. Shewumi, for coming on tonight. You heard some of the things that Mr. Buhala has said. What would be your response on the performance and the promises of the Buhari government in the last 5 years?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I want to plead that we do not have a conversation around Nigeria and its development, especially at this time, from the point of view that my friend Mr. Buhala is going about it. I think that we should elevate it a bit higher, for we cannot discuss the growth of a nation as though we're talking about activities of a government, of a governor, state, or local government. Let's be a bit more conceptual. The APC, with all sense of responsibility, have done one or two things. But what becomes problematic is what is the bigger picture relative to where the country is coming from and where the country needs to be going. For a start, very, very quickly, we're coming heavily under too much debt. The second major issue is that we have to ask ourselves, what is the whole essence of whatever work the Buhari administration is doing over a 5-year period if the real issues of unemployment does not move? Rather than move to slow down, what we get from the data that's available from National Bureau of Statistics is an exponential increase, a galloping increase. We're now at about 40.2% or thereabout. Also, look, governance is a continuum. Once the PDP government had done the framework for the railway modernization, we had done the framework for the airport modernization, we had started the rebuilding and the connecting of major expressway within the country, it would be foolhardy to think that the APC will come into government and not even try 1 or 2 or extra kilometers in that aspect. In terms of the anchor borrower program, the anchor borrower program reflects that you should have just seen that what we have been doing with agriculture. We started very, very extensively under the last administration of Goodluck Ebele Jonathan and PDP. That's what they're still working with. And so when we are trying to analyze a 5-year of the administration, I would rather we also looked at the 21 years total of the country in democracy. And I will say that, yes, it's not yet as we want it to be. I want to commend Nigerians for their patience, for their perseverance, and all of the things they've been having to go through relative to meeting the full aspiration and the hope of a nation. But I will also want to say to Nigerians, the more we all commit to being part of this country, the more we all deliver around this country, the better for us. In terms of the big issues that they wanted to bring, which are the things that they said they will achieve very, very quickly: security, anti-corruption, and stabilization of the country. They didn't do too well on anti-corruption. The last check says that they're struggling on it. Albeit they're trying on that, in that particular area, but it's difficult to give them a very big score because the instrument by which they are fighting the anti-corruption were creation of the PDP. In terms of security in the country,
I want us to, Mr. Showmi, we're talking about the economy, and before we go on our first break, we'll stay on the economy. Then when we come back, we'll talk about the issue of the anti-corruption and security. But let me quickly go to Abuja today again and ask, because you mentioned the issue of debt, and that's perhaps one issue that a PDP spokesperson also today was talking about, that the APC has taken Nigeria about 60 years. But if you look at the history of our debt, in 2010, our debt was $35 billion, $41 billion in 2011, $48 billion in 2012, $64 billion in 2013, $67 billion in 2014, $63.8 billion, $70 billion in 2017, and $73 billion in 2018. If you look at accumulatively, since President Buhari took office, it's about $10 billion difference that we have accumulated as our debt burden. How would you react to the comment that the president or the government under President Buhari had indebted this nation beyond the threshold that it can actually bear?
Well, the answer is very simple. Nigeria is a country of mono economy. It is this administration that is making concerted effort to then take us away from the oil so that we look at other areas like agriculture and the rest. Now, when they talk about debt, the simple question I will put to the same guest that you have is that how do you intend to fund infrastructure in the face of dwindling oil revenue by a country that depends largely over 80% on oil? Are you going to produce your saliva and fund projects? How are you going to deal with existing projects of government that the previous administration bastardized? If you do not have the money, it's a common logic for a businessman, for a husband and a father, for any person. If you have to undertake a project that you do not have the money, but you believe you have the clout, the character, and you have the credibility, the only reasonable thing you can do is to borrow. And that is why Nigeria has had to borrow. Now, this post-COVID-19, this COVID-19 pandemic, where is the oil? Who is buying oil across the world? And which country of the world is not faced by the problem of COVID-19 that they have to borrow? Have you heard that America is going for to borrow trillions and trillions of dollars? America needed money to be injected into their economy to finance projects and to be able to meet with the changing times. How much so Mr.
Buala,
of Nigeria?
So
people can spin.
Sorry, Mr. Buala, let's take a breather. When we come back, we touch on the issue of anti-corruption, security, and the 5 years of President Buhari in the saddle is the first year of his second term, and we're looking at the promises and the performance. Stay with us. We'll be right back, everyone.
Our government elected by the people in 2015 and re-elected in March has been mapping out policies, measures, and laws to maintain our unity and at the same time lift the bulk of our people out of poverty and onto the road to prosperity. This task is by no means unattainable. China has done it. India has done it. Indonesia has done it. Nigeria can do it. These are all countries characterized by huge burdens of population. China and Indonesia succeeded under authoritarian regimes. India succeeded in a democratic setting. We can do it. With leadership and sense of purpose, we can lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. For the next 4 years, we will remain committed to improving the lives of people by consolidating efforts to address these key issues as well as emerging challenges of climate change.
Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. We are assessing the 5 years of President Buhari in the saddle as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the renewal of his mandate as President. It's a first year of the second tenure. So we get back to the conversation with my guest on the program tonight. Mr. Daniel Buwala is a lawyer and a member of the APC. And from Abeokuta via Skype, Mr. Segun Showumi is a spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Organization. Thank you, gentlemen, for the conversation. I understand, and I want to thank both of you for having some very interesting views on what the issues confronting the nation is all about. Let me allow Mr. Showumi to quickly react to the views of Mr. Buwala on the borrowing or the debt profile of Nigeria. You heard what he said is a needed framework that we need to achieve our aim or the aim of this government. What are your views on that?
There's nothing more unfortunate than the comments attributed to the APC member that is speaking, my friend Buhala. There's a cost-benefit analysis to debt, and coronavirus and the pandemic they want to hold on to now is a new issue that came about in the world about December and in Nigeria about February. We're talking about a systematic pattern of glutoniously going after borrowings. And then when we try to match what they're collecting with what is on ground, what we see is that all of the monies, they're excited to receive it. They're excited to receive the repatriated funds of the Abacha, and it doesn't stop. And when the world economy needs to be recreated, you get very disappointed in them when you look at the attempt they are putting on the table at even refixing a budget at a time when it is clear that Nigeria cannot even afford to have any pork on the budget. They're not doing enough to stem in the recurrent expenditure and the waste there. So at the end of the day, who are they leaving this debt for? In terms of their big project, most of the big project that the Buhari government is doing is mostly being done by contractor finance anyway. So what's the borrowing about? But we will never really get to the level of activities around them, the graph, and all of the issues until we look at the books. And I just pray and hope that any day the Nigerian people vote them out of office and we get to look at the book, we're all not going to start crying. Because remember that the last time Nigeria got into debt, it was the PDP government that went through great effort to make Nigeria to become more sovereign and escape us from debt. And now they have gone to pile us into this kind of debt, and their excuse is COVID. Now, I ask Nigerians, what have you seen from their intervention on COVID that justified the huge borrowings and the great debt they are leaving for you and I, and more importantly, even for our children and our children that are unborn? That's not how to do it. There is a need for countries to borrow, but the borrowing must be tied to projects that can pay itself back. And
all right.
the way they're going about it,
yeah.
it's unbelievable.
So, Mr. Showumi, we and Mr. Buala, we have two major issues left to discuss: anti-corruption matter and security. So let's get to it. And I'd like you, let's manage the timing so that we can get to these issues. Mr. Buala, let me come to you. There is a report from the CDD on anti-corruption war under the president in the last 5 years. And this is a quote from their report and assessment. And I read and I quote from it. He says the president, the assessment knocks the president for his tendency to condone corruption with his own administration and the ruling All Progressive Congress Party. In this regard, President Buhari gets a flack over accusation that he consistently turned a blind eye to malfeasance by some of his own appointees and resisted independent oversight of Nigeria's most scandal-ridden agencies. How would you react to that comment coming on the issues of anti-corruption?
Well, first of all, when you have a bundle of things on your table, you have the option of either discussing all of it, contextualizing it, or cherry-picking the one you want to emphasize. For the record, let me say, this administration welcomes any substantive and substantiated allegation against any agency or officer of the government of the Federation. If you do so, this administration will fight that person. And I'll give you a graphic example. There was a public outcry on the social investment program. On a normal day, if it was PDP, they would keep quiet, or they may even tell Nigeria stealing is not corruption. Corruption is not stealing. But in this case, APC-led National Assembly called for a probe of this, and this is what you are seeing in the media. There is also an outcry by the people on pandemic COVID-19 fraud. Today, ICPC announced to the world that they have begun the investigation of that fraud. This is not what they do in their time. But for the record, so that they don't cherry-pick an issue and take it out of context. Number one, this administration introduced what they call whistleblowers policy. As a result of this whistleblowers policy, 7.8 billion naira was recovered, $378 million and 27,800 pounds through the whistleblowers protection, even without the passage into law of the witness protection. You can imagine if this witness protection has been passed to law, more people are going to come out. There will be citizen engagement that will help fight that one. Do you realize that 794 billion naira between 2015 to 2019 has been recovered by EFCC? The ICPC, through what they call system and procedures of the MDAs, between 2017 and 19, they have recovered 41 billion. What else can you say as to the means of fighting corruption? Now, all right, you just read a quote by someone. Can you juxtapose that with what places like the West Africa, when they made the president the champion of anti-corruption fight, did he bribe them? Yeah. So what about the commendation by the United States of America and the United Kingdom, which led to their cooperation through asset forfeiture, freezing of the money, and the recent return of the Abacha?
Mr. Buala, let's get on this matter. Yeah, let's get Mr. Showumi's response. I'm afraid on the issue of security, whether we'll be able to secure more time to get the issue of security done. But Mr. Buala, if you look at some of the things that the Buhari government said they've done on anti-corruption, what are your views on anti-corruption and transparency?
I think the Buhari government and its friends like Buala don't understand that anti-corruption is a challenge for all nations of the world. And it is the reason why nations subscribe to peer review mechanisms. A peer review mechanism is a process by which other agencies becomes the arbiter and weighs in to measure your effort. If you are jumping about on the same spot and you are witch-hunting people and you are not getting the job done, no credible anti-corruption international agency is going to rate you high. And when they rate you low, you can't come back and start telling us this, that, because whatever it is that you're bringing into public domain has already been considered. And the reality is that your government does not look to solve anti-corruption issues. Your government plays to the gallery. Your government cherry picks. Your government goes after the opponent. Your government pretends as if it cannot see what's going on with its members. Your government does not hurry up on prosecuting its own friends. Your government is quick only to go after opposition. your government seems to be incapable of seeing not just anti-corruption around the government, but your government is incapable of seeing anything. It bothers us that on almost all important issues, the answer to the president of Nigeria and his people and his followers is always, we didn't know.
All right,
we created the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. We created EFCC. We created ICPC. These are all instruments.
Mr. Showumi, we are obviously out of time. But look, let's help me, please. I'm being told that we are out of time. But 10 seconds in your final submission, Mr. Bwala and Mr. Showumi. So we have 20 seconds to round up. But I want you to touch on security in 10 seconds each, please. Your time starts now, Mr. Bwala.
Well, before this administration came on board, there was no confidence that the outside world had with Nigeria. That is why America could not sell some of the high-tech military equipment. But ever since this administration came and demonstrated the willingness to fight, we have this government-to-government agreement that was signed, which is leading to the 12 Tucano military helicopters that are coming. We have the similar agreement with Russia. They have sold a couple of ammunitions to us. We have one with China. We have with Pakistan. And from the north,
your 10 seconds is over. Let's allow Mr. Showumi's 10 seconds now on your final word and on the issue of security. Your 10 seconds stands now, Mr. Showumi.
On the issue of security, all Nigerians are now living witnesses as to how downwards our life has gone. We no longer deal with just Boko Haram, which is always about to go in terms of your audio success. We're dealing with even internal implosion as a result of nepotism occasioned by them, threatening even the fiber of the society. There is no part of Nigeria now that is spared. And therefore, I think we need a big day to discuss this anti-corruption security issue and be able to show to them that they are just jumping on the
Your 10 seconds is over, Mr. Showumi. But I must sincerely thank both of you for your arguments tonight and the assessment of the Buhari's 5 years in office. Thank you so much, sincerely, Mr. Daniel Bwala, for your time, and Mr. Segun Showumi. That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. Bye for now.